I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers stay as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome to A Course in Miracles in Practice. This is our exploration where we take these incredible, sometimes complex ideas and really look at how they apply in our day-to-day lives.
And today we're getting into a lesson that is, I think, so pivotal. Lesson 323.
I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. And right away, you can't miss it.
You can't. The quotation marks, they're all over this lesson. Sacrifice, cost, debt.
It's like a huge flashing sign. The Course is flagging these words for us immediately.
It is. It's borrowing the language of our world, a world built on transactions, on scarcity, on loss.
And it uses that language to pull the rug out from under our entire way of thinking.
Exactly. It's a signal that a radical redefinition is coming. Why would giving up something like fear, which we all want to do, be framed as a sacrifice?
From our ego's point of view, it feels like one. And that's the whole knot we have to untangle.
It's a profound irony, isn't it? The supposed sacrifice God asks of us is just to give up the things that cause us all our pain.
All the suffering, the anxiety, the doubt.
The cost is just letting go of illusions.
Yeah.
The debt is just stopping the lies we tell ourselves.
We're being asked to lay down this massive, heavy burden that we insist on carrying everywhere.
And the fact that we find that so hard is really the whole point of this lesson. It reveals our own hidden value system.
Absolutely. So these concepts are not just abstract. They are designed to be intensely practical, to shift how you see things in real time in your own life.
So let's ground ourselves in the text itself. Let's read lesson 323 and just let these loaded terms land.
I'll start. Lesson 323, I gladly make the sacrifice of fear.
Here is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved Son. You ask him to give up all suffering, all sense of loss and sadness, all anxiety and doubt, and freely let your love come streaming into his awareness, healing him of pain and giving him your own eternal joy.
Such is the sacrifice you ask of me, and one I gladly make, the only cost of restoration of your memory to me for the salvation of the world.
And as we pay the debt we owe to truth, a debt that merely is the letting go of self-deceptions and of images we worshipped falsely, truth returns to us in wholeness and in joy.
We are deceived no longer. Love has now returned to our awareness, and we are at peace again, for fear has gone, and only love remains.
So powerful. And it takes us right into that first big concept.
Sacrifice.
When we think of sacrifice in the conventional sense, it always means giving up something you actually value.
Right. It's a loss. You sacrifice your free time for a project. You sacrifice money to help someone. There's always this sense of having less of something good afterward.
You give up something precious for a goal that might be uncertain or maybe necessary, but there's a definite cost involved, a real sense of loss.
And the Course just turns that completely on its head. It says the sacrifice is to give up suffering.
Fear, anxiety, doubt, all the things we desperately want to be free of.
Which is where the term becomes, it's wonderfully absurd when you see it that way.
It's a non-sacrifice. Nobody talks about sacrificing a terrible headache.
You don't mourn the loss of the flu. You seek relief from it. You're glad it's gone.
But the Course puts the word in quotes because it knows. It understands that from the ego's perspective, letting go of our misery can actually feel like a loss.
And that's the source of the confusion we have to unpack, isn't it? Why does it feel that way?
It feels that way because we've made fear valuable. We've secretly assigned it a purpose.
We've given it a job to do.
We operate under this deep, often unconscious assumption that fear is caution, that worry is the same thing as being responsible.
That is the absolute core of the cognitive error. I see it in my own life all the time, especially around any kind of conflict.
For example,
if I have a difficult conversation I need to have with someone, I can spend days rehearsing it in my head.
Running all the scenarios.
Exactly. Playing out what they'll say, what I'll say back. Outlining all my points, anticipating their arguments. And all that time, I'm delaying the actual conversation.
And that anxiety you feel during those days, what does it feel like?
It masquerades as being productive. I tell myself, I'm just preparing or I'm being strategic.
The anxiety feels useful. It gives you the illusion that you're in control of the situation.
Right. The ego whispers that if I feel this fear, it means I'm being vigilant, I'm on guard, I won't be blindsided.
So letting go of that constant rehearsal, that anxiety, feels reckless.
It feels like I'd be sacrificing my preparedness, like I'm dropping my armor and walking into battle unprotected.
It's the ultimate Trojan horse, isn't it? We believe we're protecting ourselves by staying in that state of high alert.
But all we're really doing is just maintaining our own suffering.
And this lesson forces us to look right at that equation and see it for what it is. We are sacrificing our actual present peace.
To maintain a story that falsely promises us protection in the future.
It helps to even look at the word itself. Sacrifice. The Latin roots are sacred and to make.
To make sacred.
Right. And in almost every religious or cultural tradition, sacrifice assumes there's some kind of demanding authority, a deity who demands something precious from you. Your best lamb, your firstborn, your most valuable possession. You have to give something up to earn their favor.
So the Course takes that incredibly familiar, almost traumatic religious language.
And completely inverts it. It reclaims the word.
It says, okay, you want to make something sacred by giving it up. Then give up your pain, give up your grievances.
It shows us what is truly precious to release. All the things that hurt us.
This actively dismantles that core ego assumption of a demanding God who wants something from us.
On the contrary, the only demand is that we stop hurting ourselves.
And the resistance we feel to that, that's everything. That resistance is our deep attachment to the wounds themselves.
Because the wounds support our identity, don't they? My identity as a victim or as someone who is justified in their suffering.
That's the real-world friction. If I'm holding a grievance against someone, that story of being wronged is something I run constantly in my mind.
It feels true. It feels justified.
It affirms that I was right, they were wrong, that I'm morally superior, that I deserve justice or an apology.
So if you let go of the anger, what does the ego scream?
It screams, you're sacrificing justice, you're letting them get away with it. You're sacrificing your moral high ground.
The ego makes the suffering feel like a form of righteous payment.
And that's the true illusion of sacrifice the Course is pointing to. We think we're giving up something essential, like our right to be angry.
But what we're actually doing is trading the perceived utility of that pain.
For simple, immediate peace.
And that transition from feeling the loss to realizing you've only lost a source of pain, that's the whole experience. That's the lesson in action.
The moment you finally release it, when you realize you can just stop running that old story.
That's the moment the quotation marks just fall away.
It stops being a perceived loss and it instantly becomes liberation. All the energy that was tied up in maintaining that conflict, that anxiety, is suddenly free.
It's the ultimate inside-out meaning of sacrifice. And it sets the stage perfectly for the next term the Course redefines for us.
Right. Once we see that sacrifice is actually the end of all loss, we can look at the idea of cost.
The lesson is so precise here. It says, giving up fear is the only cost of restoration of your memory to me.
Again, we have to hold that up against our normal understanding of cost.
Conventional cost is always about diminishment. If I pay a cost, I have less of something.
Less money, less time, less energy. The resource is depleted.
But the Course's cost works in the complete opposite way. When you pay this cost by letting go of illusions,
You don't get less, you get more. You get wholeness, joy, clarity.
it's a transaction of pure expansion. It's a cost that yields an infinite return. What's the real-world tangible cost of holding on to these false images, of living in a state of worry?
And it is massive. It's a measurable drain on our finite resources.
Think of worry as a kind of high-interest loan you've taken out against your own mental and physical energy.
That's a great way to put it.
The principle of the loan is the actual problem, whatever it is. But the interest, the constant dwelling, the rehearsing, the anxiety, that interest is astronomical. It compounds daily.
I can speak to that so directly. I remember a period where I spent so much time planning for worst-case financial scenarios, just running the numbers over and over.
And you told yourself you were being prudent. responsible.
I absolutely did. My anxiety was completely disguised as responsibility. I thought worrying was a form of planning.
And what was the actual cost of that worry?
The real cost was total mental exhaustion. It was a lack of presence. It was a diminished capacity to be creative at work because my focus was always fractured.
And did the worry solve the problem?
No. It just consumed all the energy I needed to actually solve the problem.
And that is the illusion in action. The false image we worship is that worry is productive, that it's somehow protecting us or earning us a better outcome.
And the real world cost is right there in front of us. Lack of sleep, irritability, not being able to focus on what's actually happening right now.
So when the Course says the cost is letting go of the worry, it's saying the payment is just the act of stopping that self-destructive activity.
It's like immediately canceling that high interest loan. You just stop paying the interest.
Exactly. The cost is the cure. The cost of stopping the worry is simply the act of stopping the worry.
It sounds so circular, but when you grasp it, it's incredibly liberating.
You're just giving up the illusion that the worry was serving any purpose at all beyond propping up the ego story of being a separate, vulnerable self.
And what do we get in return for that cost? The lesson says it's the restoration of your memory.
And that concept is so key. We are not paying a cost to earn something new from God.
Like we're buying peace or buying joy.
No, we are paying the cost to uncover something that was already there the whole time. Memory, wholeness, joy. That's our natural state. It's just been obscured by the illusions.
The worry was the barrier.
That shift in framing from earning to restoring is so profound because in our world, restoration usually means fixing something that was broken or damaged.
But here, the memory of truth was never damaged. Our wholeness was never broken.
It was merely obscured. The cost is only required because we so stubbornly cling to the illusion that those shields are necessary for our protection.
The Course insists that clarity is our natural state. Confusion is the effort.
The cost of confusion is the effort required to maintain the confusion.
So the moment we drop the effort, we revert to clarity. This cost isn't a painful sacrifice. It's just the end of a painful, pointless exertion.
We pay the cost, and immediately we are expanded, whole, and joyful.
Which prepares us for what might be the most loaded transactional term of all.
The idea of debt.
Right. If sacrifice is liberation and cost is restoration, what on earth does it mean when the lesson says we owe a debt to truth?
That language carries so much cultural weight, doesn't it? Debt implies failure. It implies a legal or moral obligation.
It implies interest is accumulating and you're falling further behind. It can make truth sound like this demanding, oppressive creditor that we failed.
It can trigger so much guilt and shame, this feeling of being perpetually in the wrong.
And that oppressive feeling is exactly why the Course addresses it so directly and so precisely. We are conditioned to think of debt as having taken something that wasn't ours.
And now we have to suffer in order to pay it back.
But the lesson immediately clarifies. It defines the debt in a very specific, non-conventional way.
It says the debt is a debt that merely is the letting go of self-deceptions and of images we worshiped falsely.
That one word, merely, is so important. It just strips away all the guilt and obligation we project onto the idea of debt.
So it's not a debt in the sense that we borrowed something from truth and then lost it or spent it.
That's a critical distinction.
We didn't borrow self-deception from anywhere. We generated it.
So the debt is paid simply when we cease the destructive thought patterns.
It completely reframes our idea of moral accountability. The only thing we owe is to stop making the mistake.
We pay the debt by stopping the mistaken activity.
So let's get really tangible. What are those images we worshiped falsely? This is where the practice really comes alive.
These are the aspects of our identity or the external world that we give ultimate authority to. The things we treat as necessary for our survival or our self-worth.
Like the image of ourself as someone who always has it all together.
Oh, that's a big one. The image of being always competent or the one everyone relies on?
We worship that image. We build an entire identity around it, and we endow that false image with the authority to dictate all our decisions.
And the moment that image is threatened, say by a mistake we make, panic sets in.
And we pay a massive debt of energy to maintain that facade, to hide the cracks.
Or what about the image of security? We worship the image that security comes solely from our financial status or our job title.
We give that image our absolute authority. It dictates that our worth, our safety, is tied to these external, constantly changing factors.
So the threat of losing a job doesn't just feel like a problem to be solved, it feels like annihilation. Because we've worshipped that image of security.
And in relationships. The image of a harmonious relationship that requires us to avoid certain topics.
We worship the image of a conflict-free peace by sacrificing genuine, honest communication.
And the debt we pay for that is years of unspoken resentment and suppressed truth that slowly poisons the connection.
And the payment of that debt is simply the willingness to speak the truth, even if it threatens that false image of perfect harmony.
The depth of our resistance to paying this debt is directly tied to how strongly we believe the image is reality.
Let's go back to the grievance example. When I'm clinging to my anger, I'm worshiping the image of myself as a victim who is morally owed something.
And that image feels like the absolute truth in that moment.
It feels like my reality, so letting go of the grievance feels like I'm losing my grip on reality itself.
That's the core friction. If I stop believing the story that makes me right and them wrong, what am I left with?
I feel like I'm letting the offender off the hook, or that I'm sacrificing my right to the past.
But the payment of the debt is simply the recognition that maintaining that grievance is a trade. You're trading your present peace for a story about the past that only hurts you.
And the debt is finally paid when I stop believing that trade is a good deal.
And the beauty of it is the simultaneity. The moment we stop fabricating the self-deception, the lesson says truth instantly returns in wholeness and joy.
The payment, which is letting go, and the return, which is wholeness, are the exact same event.
We just remove the internal obstacle, and our natural state of peace rushes back in to fill the space.
So the implication is so profound. We aren't actually indebted to truth.
We are indebted to the illusion. The illusion of self-deception is what requires constant payments of energy to maintain.
And once we stop making payments to the illusion, we are at peace again.
It's the ultimate reversal of the whole economic metaphor. It was never about getting something back that we lost. It was about recognizing that nothing was ever taken in the first place.
Which brings us to a key word in the lesson's title. I gladly make the sacrifice of fear.
That word gladly is so crucial.
It's not a suggestion to fake it. It's not saying we should force ourselves to be cheerful when we're actually terrified.
No, it's describing the natural emotion that arises when you finally truly see the trade-off you've been making.
When you see the absurdity of the ego's bargain.
Exactly. You've been trading infinite peace and joy for this finite, corrosive, and ultimately useless anxiety.
And once that equation really sinks in, once you see it clearly,
The desire to hold on to the anxiety vanishes, and making the trade gladly becomes the only sane, inevitable choice.
but that resistance is so real in the moment. Let's talk about those times when fear feels completely non-optional. For instance, I send a really important email and I don't get a reply right away.
And the mind just takes off.
Starts generating all these complex negative scenarios. They must be upset with me. I must have said something wrong.
And in that moment, in the middle of that spiral, trying to just let go of fear feels completely reckless.
It feels like choosing to be ignorant instead of realistic.
Because the spiral has successfully convinced you that it is realism. It has masked itself as prudence or as critical analysis.
So if someone were to tell me in that moment to just let it go, my first reaction would be to think they're naive.
You'd feel like you were sacrificing your ability to protect yourself from a bad outcome.
I'd think if I start worrying about this, I'll stop preparing for the worst.
The practice here isn't just to stop the thought through willpower. It's to recognize the thought for what it is. A self-deception, an image of disaster that you are falsely worshiping.
And when the fear releases, because you saw through it, the surprise is profound.
Because what returns is not vulnerability.
It's clarity. Suddenly you can see the situation for what it is, an unanswered email, without all the fear and fabricated stories distorting your perception.
And with that clarity, you can actually respond effectively if a response is needed.
And that feeling, that shift from frantic, useless anxiety to calm, undistorted awareness, that is the gladness.
The joy the lesson promises is that very shift.
You realize all the energy you were spending on worrying can now be used for actual constructive problem solving. Or, more likely, just for being present and at peace.
We have to be honest about the process, though. That feeling of gladness doesn't always come before the act of letting go.
That's such an important point. Often we're operating tentatively at first.
We let go with a little bit of a feeling of loss, thinking we might be sacrificing something valuable. We're not sure.
But then the wholeness and the joy, the gladness, arrives afterward. And with it comes the recognition of what we were really holding on to.
Which was nothing of value at all, just a painful story.
And that's the cumulative process of practice, isn't it? We follow the instruction, maybe a little uncertainly at first. We say, okay, I'll try to make this sacrifice even though it feels scary.
And then truth returns. Joy follows. And we collect that piece of empirical evidence.
We slowly build the case for ourselves. We build the understanding that the Course's promise is actually true. The cost really is restoration. Paying the debt really does bring everything back.
And each time we do it, each tentative act of release, no matter how small, it weakens the illusion that our suffering is somehow protecting us.
We begin to trust this reversal.
We start to recognize the bad trade-off instantly. When our perception of what sacrifice means finally aligns with the truth, when we see we are only ever sacrificing pain, it can only be done with gladness.
The lesson concludes with that ultimate promise, the end point of this whole process.
We are deceived no longer. Love has now returned to our awareness, and we're at peace again, for fear has gone and only love remains.
And that state isn't some prize we achieve through suffering.
It's a natural return to what has always been true, accomplished simply by releasing our belief in the illusions of suffering, cost, and debt.
So this practice is a constant invitation to observe our own inner accounting system, to challenge every single instance where we equate worry with protection or anger with justice.
And to recognize the very real, tangible costs of the illusions we choose to maintain.
So to summarize this incredibly deep and illuminating exploration, Lesson 323 takes the language of our transactional world sacrifice cost debt.
And it doesn't use it to reinforce our illusion of obligation and loss. It uses it to completely reverse our entire understanding of reality.
It meets us right where we are, lost in a belief system of scarcity and loss, and it uses our own words to point the way out.
The quotation marks are the Course's way of acknowledging our experience. It's saying, I know this feels like a debt. I know this feels like a real cost. I know this feels like a painful sacrifice.
But I'm going to show you that these words, when they're applied to the truth, mean the exact opposite of what you've always assumed they mean.
What you have been calling sacrifice is actually the end of all loss. What you have been calling a debt is the restoration of everything you ever thought you needed to fight for and earn.
And this reversal is just so necessary because we can't simply jump over our own cognitive framework. We have to work through it.
We have to use the language we understand to dissolve the concepts that hold us captive.
The Course so brilliantly uses the illusion's own vocabulary against itself to show us what those words look like when they're aligned with truth, instead of with the ego's scarcity mindset.
So as a final thought for you to carry with you into your day, just observe. Observe closely where you might be maintaining a state of suffering or worry, because on some level, you believe it's productive.
Where you treat it as prudent or necessary or even righteous.
And then notice the tangible cost that worry demands from you right here, in this moment. What small illusion can you just stop generating today, and in doing so, pay the only debt you owe to truth and receive your immediate return of wholeness?
Thank you so much for joining us for this exploration of Lesson 323. We would love to hear what resonated with you. You can always reach out at the individual letters ACIM at theworldharmonyproject.org or find us on social media at The World Harmony Project.
And we will be back to continue the journey together with our next exploration of Lesson 324.